Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. Now, the film industry loves its sequels, as is evident by the fact that if you do any sort of digging in the science fiction genre, it's not long at all before you've run into some iteration of Planet of the Apes. Perhaps one of the best examples of the Hollywood sequel machine, the original Planet of the Apes film spawned 4 direct sequels, with all the films being released between the years of 1968 and 1973. But even the first film was derived from another work, La Planète des Singes, a French novel whose original English title was Monkey Planet. They of course changed that to Planet of the Apes to coincide with the film's release. That, and to be scientifically accurate, apes aren't monkeys, at least in the same sense that humans aren't monkeys. And La Planète des Singes directly translates to Planet of the Apes. Anyway, never mind that. Let's take a look at a planet where apes evolved from men. We open up to a monologue by Taylor, played by... no, you already know.
6 months in deep space. By our time, that is. According to Dr. Haslein's theory of time in a vehicle traveling nearly the speed of light, the Earth has aged nearly 700 years since we left it. While we've aged hardly at all.
Yes, in theory, that's how it works. Of course, it's still not a good idea to smoke in a spaceship. I mean, the smoke alone would seriously tax the air filtration systems, and the extremely high oxygen content in a spacecraft would likely mean the entire cigar would flare up, if not the whole ship. He finishes up his log and takes one last look at his crew in hypersleep before joining them. I'm still kind of confused why they need hypersleep pods. I mean, it's a 1.5-year journey. Yeah, it'll get boring, but I'm pretty sure it's cheaper to get a Game Boy. After this, and the credit sequence, we get a loud, disorienting sequence of shots as the ship gracefully plummets into a lake. They wake after 1 year of sleep and find that their hot young thing isn't so hot anymore. Oh, and the airtight pressurized spacecraft's hull is about as strong as tissue paper. Now wait, if they're floating on top of the lake, then there's not nearly enough water pressure to cause that strong a leak. In any case, they must abandon ship immediately, and Taylor takes one last look at the clock. November 25th, 1378, the 1979th anniversary of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. I'm sure that's relevant. And thus they take what supplies they can and escape before the ship sinks beneath the water.
Well, where are we? Do you have any notions, Skipper?
We're some 320 light years from Earth on an unnamed planet in orbit around a star in the constellation of Orion. Is that close enough for you?
You were going near light speed for 2,000 years. That's a bit further than 320 light years. I guess it would be a bit further since it's not a straight direct route you likely took, but that's one hell of a circle. The crew calls bullshit on him too, as nobody had time to check the tapes, but they soon come ashore and must decide how to progress.
If there's no life here, we've got just 72 hours to find it. That's when the groceries run out. Let's go.
Which direction?
That way.
Any particular reason?
None at all.
Well, it's either that or stay and starve to death, given the options. But Landon takes the time to pay his respects to Stewart. Maybe he's not the best guy to be leading this expedition. After continuing for a bit and establishing motivations, they do find something that hints they might actually survive out here.
Life.
Well, it used to be life before you ripped it up. Good thing they didn't find a kitten. Thus they continue, searching for hospitable land, and soon enough they find something of interest.
Look! Scarecrows?
Must be working. I haven't seen a crow for miles. Of course, the crew does the most logical thing when encountering an obvious deterrent, and goes in closer for examination. However...
Hell with the scarecrows.
Yeah, that tree is much more interesting than the thicket of bushes you were just standing in. But just past that is exactly what they were looking for, an oasis. So instead of checking and restocking their supplies, they strip down to nothing and jump right in. Yeah, I know it's great after 3 days wandering around in the desert, but, I'd like the scene a little more if Stuart were still alive so I could enjoy it. I mean, personally, 3 naked guys just doesn't really do it for me. I have to! Anyway, soon after, that, they notice their clothes happen to be in the process of being stolen. And of course, they can't make it back to a single article before they all have been taken. Well, they seem comfortable enough in the nude, I'm sure this won't be a setback whatsoever. As it turns out, the thieves in question didn't seem to be interested in the articles whatsoever, as they simply tore them apart as they ran. For shits and giggles. Following their thieves, they find them to be a collection of primitive humans, now bored with tearing apart others' belongings for no reasons, as they are on their lunch break.
Look on the bright side. This is the best they've got around here. In 6 months, we'll be running this planet.
Shouldn't have said that! Right on cue, this introduces the trio to those who do have the power on this planet. Intelligent apes! Well, honestly, the cinematography does work well to portray the intended surprise of that shot and that scene. But considering we, started watching a movie called Planet of the Apes, you kinda see it coming. As the scene goes on, the gorilla hunting party corrals and captures most of the humans while killing several others, including Dodge. Okay, so should I do a joke about his name saying he should have dodged, or should I point out that the only black man on the planet is killed in the first conflict of the movie? And as the scene ends, Taylor is shot in the neck, which in reality would probably kill him, but here only renders him unable to speak.
Smile.
But not too big a smile, otherwise we'll see that mouth, inside your mouth. Afterward, Taylor is brought to a laboratory under the examination of Zira, the resident animal psychologist.
How's our patient today?
No change. The minute you open the door, he goes into his act.
Well, Bright Eyes, is our throat feeling better? It still hurts, doesn't it?
See? He keeps pretending he can talk.
I'm personally confused as to why Taylor never thought to resort to, sign language. Soon after, we are introduced to Dr. Zaius, played by Maurice Evans.
Open up. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Oh, Dr. Zaius.
Perhaps he understood.
Man has no understanding.
Careful there, Dr. Zaius. Your mouth inside your mouth is showing.
Man has no understanding.
Didn't take me long to pull out an alien reference on this one. He offers exposition explaining his intolerance for the human species and leaves.
The sooner he is exterminated, the better. It's a question of simian survival.
Oh, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
So I take it you weren't impressed by Taylor. But on the bright side, Zira has a gift.
I've got a present for you.
Amazing. Must be the Poontang tribe.
Not sure if that's really Taylor's thing, after all. After a short time outside that didn't go particularly well for Taylor, he's thrown back into the cage, but he does take advantage of this alone time with Zira.
Julius!
I told you what you'd get!
And it's a damn good thing the apes don't have iPhones, otherwise it's far more likely that note would have come out looking like this. This revelation brings the Doctor to take Taylor out of the lab and back to her home to further their conversation without the bothersome eye of the authorities.
It's a stunt. Humans can't write.
Cornelius, famously played by Roddy McDowall, is less than convinced by Taylor's fantastic stories.
Out of the question.
Cornelius, why do you insist on provoking him?
No creature can survive in the Forbidden Zone. I know, I've been there, I've seen it.
Then how do you account for me?
I don't.
Well, it's good to know you can count on the scientific community to keep an open mind. And before long,
Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
Dr. Zaius enters their home and is none too pleased to find Taylor out of his cage.
No animals allowed outside the compound, and most especially not without a leash.
So, what's he gonna do? Starve him? Torture him?
The vet's going to geld him.
Wow! Talk about the punishment not fitting the crime. Taylor decides it's better to risk death than to lose one's appreciation of poontang, and breaks out of the vet, giving us a pretty interesting sequence of chases and short fights taking place all throughout the Ape village, showcasing the depth of the setting while keeping it exciting. And for some reason, he doesn't swim past the edge of the village, but instead lets himself get completely surrounded and captured.
Taylor! Why did you run away?
Something about his nuts. He'd prefer to keep them. Thus, we get one of the most famous lines in movie history.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
So saying that so profoundly in front of everybody in the village surely means that somebody will, or they'll just throw him back in the cage and forget about it. But soon enough, or as the narration puts it weeks later, a hearing is called to decide the fate of Taylor.
My name is Taylor.
Hit it! Silence the animal!
Wait, let me...
Considering how things went the few times I've been to court, I'd say Taylor's doing pretty damn well. As the trial commences, it quickly becomes apparent that the culture's scientific endeavors are hampered by its adherence to age-old texts.
That the Almighty created the ape in his own image, that he gave him a soul and a mind, that he set him apart from the beasts of the jungle and made him the lord of the planet. These sacred truths are self-evident.
Such a silly world, this ape planet. I'm sure glad that faith doesn't hamper scientific discovery in our... Oh yeah. They did actually collect all the surviving humans from the hunt, however, and Taylor even finds Landon. There is a slight problem, though.
You did it. You cut up his brain, you bloody baboon!
That's an orangutan. Get it right. From what I've seen in this courtroom, they're gonna hold that against you.
I know nothing of your culture. I admit that.
Of course he doesn't know our culture because he cannot think.
But then again, the remainder of the trial simply solidifies that the tribunal will ignore all of the evidence that was objected, which would be all of it, and decide the fate of Taylor and the chimpanzee scientists based on their initial prejudices. Well, okay. Kind of a pointless hearing then, isn't it?
Oh, your case was preordained.
I'll take that as a yes. And this whole song and dance was Dr. Zaius' way of trying to get Taylor to give him the whereabouts of his tribe of intelligent men. Which, of course, doesn't exist, so you can imagine how well this conversation pans out.
Where is your tribe?
My tribe. They live on another planet in another solar system.
If you're trying to protect others of your kind, it'll cost you your identity. I give you just 6 hours to make a full confession. After that, I shall use surgery to obtain one.
Upon lobotomizing him, how exactly do you intend on finding his tribe, Doctor? Fortunately for him, Lucius, played by Lou Wagner, just so happens to show up, and after a little subterfuge, helps him make a slightly more stealthy escape.
She comes along too.
Zira doesn't want your female.
I want her.
Are you sure? I mean, while you were gone, she's been fucking the producer. Seriously, she got pregnant halfway through the film. And thus, under the cover of Day for Night, the three of them escape, along with Zira, meeting up later with Cornelius.
Do you have any weapons, any guns?
The best, but we won't need them.
I'm glad to hear it. I want one anyway.
I'm not sure if that was scripted or it was just Charlton Heston, being Charlton Heston. We see them travel for a while across familiar terrain, where Taylor and Cornelius end up on opposite sides of the canyon, somehow. And finally, they come to a rest at the old digging site where Cornelius found his archaeological evidence that predates the sacred scrolls. Only by about 700 years. Now, considering Genesis puts the creation of the universe at 6,000 years ago, and science puts it at 13.6 billion years ago, 700 years sounds like an awful petty thing to be flagging as heresy. But more importantly, Taylor takes the time to shave. Don't ask me where he got the shaving cream from.
Somehow, it makes you look less intelligent.
Yes, it does. And as they are all highly wanted fugitives at this point whom stop for an unspecified length of time at a well-known location personal to them,
Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
it's a total surprise that the council has tracked them down and brought a small army of gorillas with them. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not. Fortunately, Heston's skill with firearms holds the authorities off long enough for them to make a bargain with Dr. Zaius.
All right. Now, if they can prove those scrolls don't tell the whole truth of your history, if they can find some real evidence of another culture from some remote past, will you let them off?
Of course.
Well, that's awful nice of him. So they head into the cave, and Cornelius presents very striking evidence for his position.
And date back 700 years earlier. That's the paradox. For the more ancient culture is the more advanced.
Dr. Zaius, however, arbitrarily declares anything that looks like evidence against the sacred scrolls must be incorrect by default and ignores both his testimony and Taylor's detailed descriptions of what the artifacts actually are.
That's lunacy. I can offer alternate descriptions of every one of those articles, which is just as ingenious as yours. But it'd be conjecture, not proof.
No, that's not how you defend faith. I mean, you got the first part right, completely ignoring all scientific evidence. But then, when you pull an answer out of your ass, even when other evidence already contradicts it, you defend it to the death.
Would an ape make a human doll that talks?
I don't see any reason why not. There's a line of toys right now that consist of sentient garden vegetables. This revelation is interrupted, however, when the gorillas move in to take the camp. But that would mean they're also disobeying orders from Dr. Zaius to withdraw. Whoops. Thinking fast, Taylor holds Zaius hostage to keep the gorillas at bay and restock his goods while Zaius and him have their final dialogue of the film.
Then answer me this. If man was superior, why didn't he survive?
Well, thinking of the popularity of Glee, Twilight, LMFAO, and anything involving Michael Bay, I think it's safe to say, based on the evidence presented, that the rapture isn't far off. With that, Taylor leaves, but Dr. Zaius has a few last things to attend to.
Fetch your explosives. We're going to seal up the cave.
Yes, sir.
Seal the cave?
That is correct, and you will both stand trial for heresy.
Could you at least have waited until you got most of the way back to the village before you went back on your word? I mean, everyone is still within earshot. And armed! But this brings our story to a close, as Taylor heads off for the final performance of this film. When we run out of food, I'm cooking you next. Geez, even on the Planet of the Apes, you can't go 50 feet on the beach without finding a bunch of garbage just dumped carelessly. And for fuck's sake, someone just threw away a perfectly good Statue of Liberty! It looks just like the one on Earth.
You maniac!
Whoops.
You blew it up!
Well, that was Planet of the Apes. Or, well, I guess if the planet was Earth, it was just a village of the apes. Well, never mind that. It's remembered as one of the greats in cinematic history, and I'm not going to argue with that. If you want to get nitpicky, Planet of the Apes does have several flaws in the science of the science fiction, and more than a few continuity errors peppered throughout the film, but these problems are extremely minor compared to the value of the movie as a whole. Charlton Heston's performance as Taylor is fantastic, and the whole cast of actors portraying the apes of this movie do a phenomenal job as well, even under literally pounds of makeup. The makeup in question, while not as convincing as the effects used in newer films, are still done well enough to hold up today. The setting is also wonderful. Interestingly, the book and original screenplay called for a more modern ape world, but budget restraints caused them to go for a more primitive one, and ironically, this helped to give the film a timeless quality. As not the only change from the book, however, as the main human's name, his reception, and even the planet he lands on are different. As in, according to the book, it really was a planet orbiting the star in the constellation of Orion, not Earth. But despite so many differences, the power of the themes and undertones of the Planet of the Apes film cannot be denied. Overall, Planet of the Apes has certainly earned its spot in cinema history, and I'd rate it at 5 damn dirty apes out of 5. The original 1968 classic holds up brilliantly today, and any fan of science fiction adventure owes it to themselves to give it a proper viewing. Thank you all for watching. I've been Decker Shado, and remember, possibly more famous than the Planet of the Apes is the Planet of the Apes legacy, spawning sequel after sequel, year after year, and I plan on tackling each and every movie in this, the Summer of the Planet of the Apes.